I don't know a fucking thing that's in my life. So I hustle. 10 quarter reaction video, man. Fuck is it talking about, man?
Hey, welcome back to the Dan Quarter Show. South Africa is a movie, and you're on the watch party. Now, in the last few months in particular,
It was
we've
gonna be a
all
long
had to
video,
become
bro.
obsessed with South Africa's farming, culture, industry, what's happening and what's not, refugees over here, I don't know, murders over there, big farms doing this, big government doing that.
The
It's a
refugees, the
mess,
white
people,
bros,
to
because
be
they
honest.
got refugee
And so
status from
I thought it
America.
would be absolutely perfect if one of the
That would be a
best
good joke.
agricultural economists in South Africa released a new book to clear everything up. And then one did. So let's get into it. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back to the show Wandile Sihlobo, who's got a new book out, which I would also call the name of this conversation that we're about to
This
have,
nigga
called The
just here to promote
Uncomfortable
his book,
Truth
bruh.
about South Africa. So, Wandile, make us a little bit uncomfortable. What have you discovered? What have you and your co-author put into the book that South Africans really need to know about what's actually going on in our agriculture sector that for some reason, somehow we don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. There's a lot of discussions that have been happening around South Africa's agriculture. And I think one of the key topics was this whole idea that this sector is under siege. It's so bad. Bad things are happening in South Africa. And bad things are not happening.
Terrible things.
Terrible things are not happening in South Africa because actually, if you look at our farming sector, it has more than doubled since 1994. This sector has actually grown significantly. In employment, things are moving well. But also the idea that there is land that is being taken away from people, there's no land that is being grabbed. If anything, much of the land that has been transferred has actually been bought by the state in the open market.
Right.
But also the state has hoarded a lot of land and not transferred it to beneficiaries with title deeds that it's supposed to transfer.
Bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Okay, I'm not saying what he's saying is not true. Right? I'm just saying that white people still own 72% of the land. Remember, these are white people are like not even 10% of the population. 7, I think, or 8. Let's just say 8 or 9 for argument's sake. 9, I'd even say 9. They own 72% of land, bro, and the state owns 14% of the land. I think you're bullshitting, bro. Because Google, I don't think Google is bullshitting. Maybe 14% is a lot to you, but it's not a lot to me.
To or was intended to transfer to. So that is holding the potential of what this sector could be. So it's a combination of all of those things.
Bullshit. I'm not saying what he's saying is wrong. I'm just saying it's not what we came here for, bruh. I think we should focus on the fact that why do white people own 72% of the land, dog? 72. Let's start there. State-owned land is 14%. But the fact that you started this whole conversation with fucking state-owned land, that is fucked up, my friend. I'm telling you right now.
But I think the publication of it arrives at the right time where South Africans have to have a serious discussion about this sector.
Absolutely, absolutely true. Okay, so there are a lot of things that you just said, and I want to ask you about all of them because they're all super important. So let's start at the start. We are all now so worried about Trump loving the refugees who also play for the Springboks for some reason. You know, these very specific kind of refugees that we have in South Africa. And so he's trying to get, or at least encouraging, creating means for Afrikaner, or he now says,
Yo, I want to know, Dan Carter, bro, who did you vote for, dog? Who did you vote for, bro? Who did you vote for? Did you vote? Who did you vote for? Who did Dan Carter vote for? I want to see.
all farmers with land, but I think he wink nudge means white farmers, that they can go and resettle in America and do their thing there. And a lot of people have become extremely worried about AGOA, which is a trade deal that prioritizes South African agricultural goods, some of them, for sale in the American markets, and what happens if Trump decides to take that away to punish South Africa. Will he? Probably unlikely, considering it punishes the very refugees he's so worried about.
He won't.
But you wrote a
They
really
make too
good
much
piece,
money also, bruh, from
about,
South Africa. This thing is
and others
mutually
have
beneficial.
spoken about this too, about how yes and no, that would be bad for South Africa. It would be bad for certain kinds of farming, like citrus farming, that is sold a lot to America. But on the other hand, America only accounts for 4% of our agricultural exports. I think most people think it's 40% or 400%. So what is
See,
really going on with AGOA? Is there
that's why I like this, bro. That's why I like white people. Talk numbers. Back to the land thing, the point that I was making. This guy is talking about state owned land that is 14%. 14%. Instead of talking about the 72% that is owned by white people. Fucking talking about agricultural experts. Shut the fuck up.
danger of it being removed? And what would probably happen if it was?
He probably has only access to the state owned land because them white people don't even let him in, bruh. So now he thinks white people don't have a lot of land.
I think the first thing folks need to appreciate is that on AGOA, no one is necessarily doing anyone a favor. You exchange goods, of course, the others pay for it, but it doesn't account for all of South Africa's agricultural exports. If anything, the African continent actually buys close to half of our agricultural products. And then you have the EU buying roughly 20%, Middle East and the others. But what
That's
AGOA
crazy.
does, it offers South Africa a tariff-free access into that market. Absence of AGOA, you would face probably a 3% duties. But other countries, as the US president says, do not pay the tariffs. The tariffs are paid by the US consumer because they are a tax on the consumer. But of course, as South Africa, we worry about this because it means now that our products would be less competitive in the US market. But I think being outside of it necessarily would not be damaging fully to the sector. But certain industries would certainly suffer on that. But I think the South African government, I mean, the point that you have heard even from the presidency is that right now we have to look post-AGOA and begin to think about what would be possible for South Africa. And I think a trade agreement with the US is what is essential for long-term sustainability.
What do Americans like from South Africa's farms? It just says citrus. Like, are they really into nachos? They definitely can't say that word, but like what do they like of our products?
They're into most of our stuff. I mean, they like our citrus.
Okay.
Everybody does. You look at Europe and everywhere, they like our wine. We produce great wine. They like our grapes, nuts. Those are the products that you find in the basket of what goes to the US.
Because it's like always interesting to me, this thing of Trump saying, well, now Americans will just be able to do it. Well, not all of it. Like, you can't just create a farming industry overnight, a citrus industry overnight. It's more expensive to create everything in America. Okay, so that's that on that. Now, talk to me about this land that the state has bought, good arable farming land that is supposed to go to beneficiaries that I don't know if the state's just not got around to like giving out this land. How much of there is it? Where is it? And why haven't they given it out yet?
I mean, I think the core point, Dan, which we make in the book is that, look, the sector has grown. Sure, we all see that. But the reality is that the black farmers in South Africa still make up about 10% of the commercial.
Exactly my fucking point.
Then the question will be, what is holding that on?
White people owning 72% of the land, bro. What the fuck? Why are you acting stupid?
About 2.5 million hectares of land.
Okay, this is always where you dribble me, Wandile. He always dribbles me. What is a hectare? How much is that? A rugby field? Is that 10? Like, how big? How much is 2.5 million hectares?
2.5 million hectares of land. You know, think about it this way.
Okay.
In South Africa today,
Yeah.
we plant all of these grains and oilseeds that we usually talk about. We produce all of that in about 4.5 million hectares of land. So when we talk about 2.5 million
An
hectares,
added half at
it's
least.
an added half of what we are
That the
already
state
doing.
has bought on the open market, but is not yet given out to farmers.
The state has bought this land, and then what has happened with it, it has
So this guy is saying the state has half of the land. That is bullshit. I just googled this shit now. It said 72% are owned by white people and 14% are owned by the state. So who the fuck has half of the land, bro? It doesn't even make sense. Like, he probably knows what he's talking about, but it's bullshit, dog. I'm not buying it, bro.
transferred it to people with short-term leases. And when you pick up a newspaper, you read countless stories of the land reform farms that are failing.
Yes.
What basically happens simply in those farms is that they are highly financialized, and then you give it to someone, no land rights, no proper support. Of course, they are bound to fail and then be out of production. So, what
Yes.
we have done essentially as South Africa is to get land that was productive out of the market between 2006 up until to today. If we can bring that back in productively, I think this is where things could grow. But the other
So he's basically saying give that land back to the white people that the state owned already, that the state already took. That's what I'm hearing, bro. I don't know. I'm not trying to be a fucked up bro, but I'm just being honest. This is just what my opinion, bro.
and I know I'm cutting you here because it's an uncomfortable or a point that you people usually make.
You people.
Who is you people
No,
first?
I am you people. Go for it.
Is the fact that all of the black farmers have got land from the government. Do you know that black South African farmers have actually bought 2 million hectares of land from their own pocket
Wild.
without actually being assisted?
Okay.
So you have a number of these programs that have
Talk
actually been
percentages.
which
We
are
don't know
all,
what the fuck you're
positive
saying,
for
bro.
the sector. Some, like this one of the land purchases.
So, what do we need the government to do to help new leases, I guess, of this government purchase land on the open market to be able to actually pull off farms, like to actually not fail?
I mean, the first step.
Yo, it's either Google must update their numbers or this guy is talking shit. He keeps talking about 2 million hectares. He said there's 4 million hectares. So 2 divided by 4 is a half. I don't understand. Like, this whole thing, I didn't hear nothing, bro. Because when I Googled 72% of the land is owned by white people, right? So why are we only talking about the 14? 14% of the land is state owned. He's been talking about state owned land for fucking 8 minutes. And that's only 14. Come on, man. Come on.
Of course, is to ensure that this is transferred with title deeds to new beneficiaries, but select those beneficiaries appropriately because we've gone through a period where a number of people that
Sometimes I feel like these people are selected, bro. You know what happens, bro? Like these news channels. If the CEO doesn't like what's being said, you can delete the episode. So who invites these people that talk shit like this, bro? Because this shit that he's saying does not make sense, bro. Like for me, call me stupid, bro. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. You see, it doesn't make sense what he's saying, bro. For example, if I search now, how much land do politicians how much land do politicians own in South Africa? It's not even more than 5%, bro. As I was fucking saying, bro, if we would check how much land is owned by politicians, it's not even more than 5%, bro. By politicians. You see, it's not even.
were benefiting
Bro,
were
this land
linked
story
to
does not make
politicians.
sense, bro.
And the second aspect, you have to ensure that there is some proper training, and I think various commodity association can
But do I
offer
think
that.
white people still own the land?
Financing is
Fuck
part and
yes.
parcel of that. But then we can't have a long evening of government bashing here.
Yes.
There's also some private sector failures which we
Totally.
dig into in the book.
let's
And I would
go, my
encourage
guy. Let's
anyone,
go.
chapter
Let's go.
3,
Private
which
sector. Let's
deals
go.
with the farmer associations, because most of them, they were structured and for the benefit of the sector. But they end up now in this position where farmer associations fight against farmer association, against government, and then we are stuck in about a long period of conversations without actually implementing things and getting the sector growing. We're stuck in debates and we feel like we are working while we are just in meetings.
Okay. So if you had a
This guy is honestly bullshitting, bruh. He is bullshitting. In my opinion, he is bullshitting, bruh. Honestly. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, he's bullshitting,
wand
bruh.
or some kind of genie's lamp, like what are the three things if you became the president today and had unfettered autocratic power as a dictator, what are the three things you would do first to try and arrest public and private sector dysfunction in the agriculture sector?
I mean, I think the one thing I would do, of course, I would start with the land.
Yeah.
Make sure the transfer of that happens. That's the first aspect. The second thing that I think
Transfer from who to who, motherfucker? From who to who? Because this guy was busy saying that the state is holding the land, that the state owns 14% of the land. So transfer the land from who to who? Are you going to take the 72% from the white people, or are you going to take the 14% from the state? What are you saying, bro?
we need to have a serious conversation of is how all of this agricultural sector is dependent on functional municipalities.
Sure.
So addressing the local government thing, I think it's important.
Tell me more about that. Are you talking about like must have good roads, must have reliable
Good
power,
roads,
must
reliable
have good
power.
security, that kind of thing that municipalities need to provide for farmers to be able to do their jobs?
Absolutely. I mean, you read the story a few years ago where in Lichtenberg, one of the agribusinesses had to move towards the KZN side. Part and parcel was the municipality not doing its part.
Wow.
Then jobs leave, incomes so there is all of that that needs to be resolved. But I think importantly, it's also this story of opening up as
You see, it goes back to what I was saying, bro. I feel like all these guys that are educated, doing all this shit, they don't have access to like the real millionaires and the real land mafias. Let me call them the land mafias. You get what I'm saying? Because since, according to Google, 72% of the land is owned by white people, right? I'm sure I'm sure Rupert probably owns 10% from that. But like, you don't have access to Rupert's farm. So this guy is just basically talking about all the things he has access to, like the state land. You've seen, yo, the state has a lot of land, but have you seen white people land? No. You got what I'm trying to say, bro. So he's only talking from what he's seen. I don't think he has a lot of access to a lot of things. So even being that educated, I feel like his information is still limited because when you are an agricultural expert or whatever, it just means you've read a lot on agriculture and you've been to a lot of places you have access to. So there's a lot of places you don't have access to that actually would fuck your mind up, you know?
many export markets as possible.
Okay.
Because today, we are exporting just around $13.7 billion worth of agricultural products.
Sure.
But if you talk to all of our fruit farmers in South Africa, they will tell you that in the next 5 years or so, we may see the volume of fruits to be harvested increasing by plus 30%. Not trees that haven't been planted, the trees that have already been planted.
Oh, I see.
And we have to have somewhere to sell that fruit to.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is foresight from years ago that is
Yeah.
about to literally come to fruition, I guess.
Yes.
I didn't realize that fruition comes from the word fruit until right now. That's really exciting. Okay, so why is the narrative about South African farming so down?
I mean, look,
If there is reason to be hopeful and optimistic, I know that you do a lot of writing about how climate change.
I fuck with Dan, bruh. Dan is trying to get to where I'm going to, bruh. Because, like, literally,
Cause
answer it,
sporadic
nigga.
drought, sporadic
Don't
flooding. But if
bullshit
there
us.
is good
Answer.
weather, very often the South African. I think you wrote something recently about this, how the South African export industry has had a really good year, or the good last few years. So where do you think the negativity around South African farming comes from? Is it all these people pretending that there's
It's because fucking 72% of the land is owned by white people. I don't think there's another reason.
farm murders rife across the country and a white genocide? Like, what is it?
It comes from you. The
You
media.
people.
Look, the whole this, it comes from a general public that is negative. Earlier in the day, the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa that I
What do you mean, the fucking general public, bro? Like, we see the shit, bro. Like, what do you mean?
work for released the sentiment index results for the first quarter of this year. There's rising optimism from farmers and agribusinesses. If you talk to actual farmers and actual agribusinesses, they are not feeling under siege. They are as confused about some of the narratives that are happening across the country because no one is really coming and doing all of the very terrible things to them. If
Exactly my motherfucking point, bruh. In my opinion, I feel like the general public is trying to warn these fucking white people that, yo, y'all motherfuckers own 72% of the land. We're gonna do some shit about it. I think that's the negativity. But the problem is now, some crazy shit hasn't happened yet. But the other bros, the white bros, already on a buzz of like, hey, farm murders. So I'm sure it's already happening in pockets, but like, it's not happening that much, you know?
anything, they actually are worried that the negative conversations that are happening about the sector is going to mess up the reputation of our sector internationally.
Sure. So, what is required to go
Holy
and find
shit.
these new untapped markets? I know that one or other report came out a few weeks ago and it essentially said that, well, it gave recommendations of certain places to go and look for new markets. So, South Asia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Southeast Asia, also certain parts of South America, Mexico. How does the sector figure out where they can go and actually pull off good exports? And how do you start that happening? Is it government level trade agreements? Is it hoping that individual business people, exporters go out and find importers in different countries? What's the process?
I mean, the process is done by both the government as well as the private sector.
Okay.
For a long time, much of these markets that I'm talking about now that we send over $13 billion to were actually opened between the year 2000 and all the way to 2010. We opened a number of those markets then. What needs to happen is the government with the private sector scoping up what are the interesting markets.
Sorry, are those markets still open or did they close?
They still very much open.
I was going to say, like, did we go World Cup
all
or
of
like
those.
agriculture exports? Like, what's the process? Okay.
And in fact, we are doing reasonably well on those exports because I don't know if you know this, but we are the only African country in the top 40 global agricultural exporters.
Amazing.
And I think what we need to do now is to retain what.
Look, man, I don't want to lie. I hate these statistics about South Africa, bruh. Honestly. It's like, when you search, it's like saying South Africa has the most billionaires, right? But from those from those billionaires, maybe let's say 20% of them are black, and 20% is a stretch, dog. Maybe it is 20, because you get what I'm saying. We're all on the come up, right? As black people, but like, when you refer to all these national statistics, bro, most of the times them motherfuckers is white owned. Back to this example of the billionaires. You can search now, here South Africa has the most billionaires. But if you remove all the white people that are the billionaires, we're fucked. We're fucked. We're gonna go back to. I don't even think we're gonna get bronze medal, bruh. You get what I'm saying? So we're busy claiming white people's success, bro, which is insane. Which they accumulated through fucking apartheid. You get what I'm saying? So I don't like, man.
We have,
I see.
which is why even the
Nigga gonna make me
engagement with the
angry,
US,
dog.
as much as it's difficult it is, we have to make sure that we retain
I
that
mean-
market, retain.
As black people, we still do benefit from these white businesses and white companies, right? But let's not claim them, dog. Let's not claim them because they're not ours, dog. Come on, man.
what we have in the EU, retain what we have in Africa, while at the same time we are making sure that we are opening more in Europe, in Asia, Middle East, and the others. How do we go about scoping those markets? We look at countries with higher incomes. We look at countries with growing population, and of course, that are buying the products that we are. And we have already done a mapping of who are those countries.
Interesting. That's so exciting. The Uncomfortable Truth About South Africa's Agriculture is now in your bookstores. Wandile Sihlobo, thank you so much. And to your co-author's name quickly?
Johan Kirsten, Professor Johan Kirsten.
My final question for you is there any other uncomfortable truth that I have missed in this uncomfortable conversation?
I mean, it's late in the evening, so I decided not to touch any of the uncomfortable truth. I want your guests to go, viewers to go and watch and buy the book and check it out.
Absolutely
This
right. Wandile
motherfucker-
Sihlobo, thank you so much as
There's
always.
a lot of shit that he didn't say. That's why I was like, this whole shit is a waste of time. Because he didn't say shit. I mean, I learned a thing or two, but he didn't say shit. But it's fine, man. I enjoyed the video.